I'm Rachel Chambers. I'm a community liaison for USDA Rural Development Rural Partners Network. And if you haven't ever heard of Rural Partners Network, it was a Biden-Harris initiative from rural development for us to invest in socially disadvantaged communities in strategic parts of Kentucky and other states. So Rural Partners Network operates in 11 other states, including Kentucky, but Kentucky was one of the first states to have a Rural Partners Network. We have 14 counties that we service in the eastern part of the state through Rural Partners Network and 4 in the western part of the state. But Rural Partners Network is not everything that rural development does. Rural Partners Network, and what I do is try to help connect people with programs, not only rural development programs, but USDA programs and other federal programs. So we have about 26 other federal agencies that are our partners with Rural Partners Network, and then sometimes they have what they call priority points with their grant programs to help Rural Partners Network communities and people who apply for federal grants just get a little bit of a leg up when they're applying for those opportunities. But part of what I do also for rural development is let people know about our programming. And really, I think sometimes rural development is one of the best kept secrets of the federal government because it is so diverse in what it provides to rural communities. And usually we assist rural communities under 50,000, and then we have quite a few programs. So a lot of our programs fall under about 3 silos. The first silo being community facilities and water and wastewater programs. And those programs help local governments usually do quite a few things. We will fund ambulances and police cars and city halls and nonprofit organizations and help them build facilities to assist people in their communities. And then water and wastewater, we make sure people have clean and safe drinking water through municipal water systems and wastewater systems. The second silo that we operate under is called Rural Housing Service, and that's where Rural Partners Network sits. It's kind of weird because we don't really do a whole lot of housing in Rural Partners Network, but we do help connect organizations to housing opportunities. And then, of course, we have a suite of housing programs that help individuals and nonprofit organizations and local governments get housing to rural communities. And then the third silo that we really focus on is rural and cooperative development services, and that's where a lot of our assistance to farming families comes into play. And we have a suite of grant programs that can help a variety of people. Sometimes you have to be a nonprofit or a unit of local government to access those funds, and then they turn around and provide those funds to individuals and businesses and agricultural producers. And sometimes you just have to be an agricultural producer to access those rural business and cooperative development funds. So today we're going to focus on a very few programs because there's so many programs that rural development has. But particularly, I came from the housing side of rural development before I came to Rural Partners Network. And then out at the table, we have Connie Sturgill that's here with us. She knows a little bit more about the agricultural side of our rural business and rural business development programs. So if something that I talk about here catches your interest, let me know, and we can get you a fact sheet on that program. We can connect you to a specialist that knows that program inside and out. The beauty of rural development is we have 12 field offices located throughout the state of Kentucky, and then we have specialists in all of those programs that I talked about that can really drill down to the needs that you have. So we'll move on. I'm going to talk about single-family housing programs, and I know it's kind of weird to talk about single-family housing programs at a farming conference, but these programs are available to low and very low-income families, regardless if they're agricultural producers or not. And I think sometimes we get lost, rural development gets lost in making sure people know about these programs. So there are a couple of housing opportunities under this program. We have housing preservation grants that we lend out funds to nonprofit organizations, and then they are able to provide grants to families, low and very low income families, to help them repair their homes. We do a variety of home purchase loans, and those are through our 502 program. There's a direct program that we administer straight through our offices here in Kentucky, and then there's a guaranteed program where you would apply through a lender to purchase or build a home, and it helps people at a little bit higher income, more of a moderate income, than our low and very low program that's administered in our state offices. We have a 504 program. It's our home and repair loan and grant program. If you are an elderly person, you may be eligible for our grant program. If you are not an elderly person but a low or very low income person, we can help administer a loan to you at 1% for 20 years to help repair your house, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And then we very recently developed a disaster repair program, and that was in response to the 2022 floods in eastern Kentucky, and that was able to provide close to a $40,000 grant to families that were affected by that disaster and future disasters, and help them fill in that gap between what FEMA could do for them and what they needed to be able to continue to live in their home. We also provide loan packaging services to rural nonprofit organizations who want to package loans for us and receive a fee. And then we have what we call a mutual self-help housing program, where nonprofit organizations would apply to us and then help families, usually 8 to 10 families, build a house all together, helping each other, getting to the finish line, and cutting off that cost of construction and making it affordable to them. And then we also have a site loan program. So a lot of times people ask me about eligibility, and if you look at this map, those red spots, that's the only ineligible areas in Kentucky that we cannot operate in. All those yellow spots in Kentucky, we are able to provide all of those programs that I just told you about in our housing program. So it's a very, very small surface of Kentucky that we're unable to help. And then sometimes if it gets super, super close, we can get down to the nitty-gritty with your address and your coordinates and make sure that you're eligible. So let's talk about purchase loans, our Section 502 direct loans, and those are for low and very low income households. We can do a 33-year term with those loans, but under certain circumstances, we can drag that loan term out to 38 years to make that loan affordable to a family. The interest rate is set by rural development, but it is so much lower than the prevailing rate at your local bank. I think right now we're sitting at a 3.65% if you don't qualify for payment assistance, where we could subsidize your interest down to 1% interest for 33 or 38 years. So if you think about what home loans look like right now, we're hovering somewhere around 6 to 8% if you're in really good shape with a regular bank. So rural development can really help you be able to afford a home when you otherwise wouldn't be able to. We can loan up to the appraised value of the property. So if the property appraises for $150,000, we can loan you the entire $150,000. And then we can subsidize that payment for you as well. So if you qualify for a subsidy through us, the government will assist you in making your home payment, get your interest rate down to 1% interest, and help make it affordable to you as you navigate home buying. Now that is our program that is administered through our field offices. So we have specialists throughout the state in single-family housing that can talk to you about whether or not you qualify for that program and what it would look like. Some of this information gets really, really detailed, but highlights of that program: there's no down payment required. You don't have to come up with 3% or 10% of the cost of that home. There's no private mortgage insurance on that home. So like with a FHA loan. Sometimes you have to pay an additional fee because you're accessing that program for a certain amount of time or for the life of the loan. We do not require that with rural development. We can go up to 80% of the area median income for you to be eligible for that program. So it's a pretty good chunk, but you can get on our website, www.rd.usda.gov, and go under the single family housing heading, pull up an income eligibility map. It'll locate your county and tell you what 80% of the area median income would be for that county. And it changes from county to county. Applicants have to have acceptable credit histories. Usually our threshold is about a 640 credit score or higher, but if it's not there, there are mitigating circumstances, we can make exceptions to that. And then, of course, we can go up to a total debt ratio of 41%, including your house payment to make that work as well. Just a little bit on property eligibility. The site can't be large enough to subdivide into more than one buildable lot, and I think with agricultural producers, sometimes we run into that. They want to buy a big farm, but sometimes we get around that too with our program. If you're looking to purchase a farm, you might be able to get the seller to break off a part of it for our loan and then the other part of it for another part, and still be able to get the farm that you want. So just talk to us and see what we can do. And then, of course, it can't be an income-producing property. I think that's another thing that we run into with agricultural producers. So that's why we try to encourage you to break off your mortgage loan with us into like an acre or two, and then leave your farm for something else. Okay, the Section 504 program. Now that program is really special, and I think it's super exciting to talk about because I used to do a lot of these loan and grants. But basically, if you're a lower income individual and you need assistance getting floors, doors, a roof, an HVAC system, this is what that program's for. So again, I kind of alluded to it, but the loan program is for very low income homeowners. You can repair, improve, or modernize your home. If you take a loan less than $7,500, we're not going to take a mortgage against your home, and that's very valuable. It's a note-only loan. We will go 1% interest fixed for 20 years. So if you borrow that $7,499 to stay under that $7,500 limit, your payment's going to be $34.49 a month. Which is super affordable. And then we can go up to a maximum loan of $40,000 to repair your home. And then the grant program, sometimes we do these in tandem. You might do a loan program and the grant program if you're eligible. But if you are over the age of 62 and your project is to remove health and safety barriers in your home, so I'm talking about handicap accessible bathrooms or shower, or making sure that you have safe and adequate heat and plumbing. Those are the kinds of things that are focused on in the grant program. We can go to a max lifetime grant of $10,000 with that program. So sometimes somebody will come to us and they'll have a lot that they need to do, and they don't want to take a mortgage against their house. And we'll do a loan grant combination for $17,499 if they're elderly, and they'll get the $10,000 grant, and then they'll take the loan. And then they'll just have about a $35 payment to us, and that really helps people out, especially in today's world when you're trying to price out a roof or get an HVAC system, and then those costs have gone up quite considerably. Very low income is considered 30% or below the area median income. So if you go to our website, go to your county, it'll tell you very low income, low income. And it's super simple to read out. But yeah, you have to be very low income to access the 504. Sorry. I think we talked about all this. So the only other thing is for manufactured homes, you have to own the land and the dwelling. So if it is a manufactured home, you have to have a title to that manufactured home, and you have to have a deed to the property to be able to access that program. this just talks about usage, and we kind of talked about that already, but for the 504, it's a little bit more flexible. If you just go loan only, we can access cosmetic things. If it is for the grant only, we have to do health and safety repairs. I'm going to touch really quickly on the, sorry. Oh, go back. Oh, it's going forward. Go back, go back. Gotcha. Sorry. You good? Great. I'm going to touch really quickly on Rural Disaster Home Repair Grant, because only if you're in the eastern part of the state would you qualify for Rural Disaster Home Repair Grant, and it usually ties back to that 2022 flood. But really, it's for very low and low-income homeowners. When we came out with this program, we erased that very low requirement for the repair program and went up to 80% area median income. So if you are 80% area median income or below and you're affected by a presidentially declared disaster in the calendar year 2022, then we can assist you with that program. The maximum grant for that program was $40,675, and sometimes you could use our regular 504 program and the disaster program and try to make it all work, because when you're affected by disaster, that's a lot of work. We can't do duplication of benefits. So if FEMA paid you to repair your windows and doors, we can't give you money to repair your windows and doors. So we need to know how much FEMA gave you and what for, and then we can move forward with our grant in that program. There's no age restriction on the repair grant. On the regular grant, you have to be 62 or older to get grant. On the disaster grant, you don't have to be that. You just have to be age 18 or older and a homeowner to be able to receive assistance. And then, of course, it had to be from a calendar year 2022 presidentially declared disaster, which in Kentucky, it was that 2022 flood that hit eastern Kentucky and affected about 23 counties. And then when we started working that disaster program, we realized, well, there's probably some other disasters that happened in the nation that need assistance. So they came out with the 504 presidentially declared disaster grant pilot, and we were able to hit up disaster counties that ranged from July of 2022 to July of 2024. Same kind of requirements on that grant program. And then we kind of ran out of money on that. But hopefully in our next budget year, we will be able to reauthorize that program and move that pilot forward. And in rural development, if you don't know, we have to run a pilot before we make a program permanent. So that was our flight into disaster. And we really realized in rural communities, other than FEMA after a disaster, that's the only option families have. So we're trying to fill in that gap between what FEMA can supply to a family and what they really need to be able to work and live in their homes again. I'm not going to go over application packaging just because that's just not the purpose of where we're at right now. But let me go back to guaranteed loans. And guaranteed loans are for purchase or construction of a new dwelling. And really it's for moderate income borrowers. So we can go up to 115% of the area median income, and you would apply through a lender bank. It would be a loan on the lender's term, so usually not that 33 or 38-year loan, it's a 30-year loan. And it can be for purchase, build, or refinance. Again, there's no down payment requirement. We can go up to 100% of their appraised value. There is an upfront fee, kind of acts like a down payment of 1%, and an annual fee of 3.5%, but there's no private mortgage insurance on that. And then again, just a couple of requirements. There's no set acreage limit on that particular program, so the restrictions that you would have under our direct program are not applicable, and that's really attractive to agricultural producers. And we can do new manufactured units in that program too, as long as it meets the requirements of the program. I'm not going to hit mutual self-help housing either, but I will hit site loans. And site loans are for nonprofit organizations that want to help families develop sites to be able to build their homes. So there's the Section 523 loans that is used for the self-help method. So if an organization wanted to participate in our self-help program, they could purchase a large plot of land for that program and help develop that site so it's ready to go for a self-help program that they're administering. And then again, there's the Section 524 loan to develop sites for low and moderate income families with no restriction as to the method of construction. So we could go manufactured or stick-built housing on a 524 housing site loan. And that's usually for nonprofit affordable housing developers that want to borrow the money, develop a site, and then build and sell homes to low and very low income families. And we'll just skip the requirements on that as well. Going to hit this really, really quick. The Section 503 Housing Preservation Grant. We administer those grants to affordable housing nonprofit entities throughout Kentucky. They get an allotment of funding, and it kind of acts like our home repair loan and grant program that I talked about earlier. So you could go to that affordable housing nonprofit and they could lend or grant those funds back out to a family at the same kind of terms that we do in the inside the office. So sometimes if we're out of funding because we're on a continuing resolution or we don't have a budget yet in the federal government, our affordable housing nonprofits have the availability through their grants to be able to help families that are out there. And if you're ever interested in that, we can provide you a list of those organizations. So if I haven't bored you yet, let's just hop on over to rural business programs really, really quickly. So a couple of those programs are administered through the Rural Business and Cooperative Service arm of rural development. And really it's to support business growth and also facilitate renewable energy development and develop food systems. And there's so many programs under that, and it changes from year to year depending on what Congress authorizes and what our priorities are in rural development. RBS can look different from year to year. So when we're talking about government programs, we talk about alphabet soup a lot. So if you hear these thrown around, this is what a lot of them mean. And for an agricultural standpoint, a lot of people hear about our value-added producer grant or our meat and poultry processing expansion program or the meat and poultry intermediary lending program, and then also rural business development grant. Those are some of the most popular grant programs that we have under rural business program, but they're all kind of special and important in their own way. So I'm just briefly going to touch on IRP. It's our intermediary relending program. It's where we are able to provide funding to an intermediary, which is usually a nonprofit organization or a community development financing institute, and they're able to relend money out to businesses, and that could be agricultural businesses at a 1% rate for 30 years. So there's just a couple of caveats to that program, but it's very, very useful to people when they're looking to fund their businesses and get started. I'm trying to run through these. So if you have any questions about any of the programs that I talk about, we're at the very end of the line. We have fact sheets. We have Connie. So the other one is the RMAP program. And it kind of talks about micro enterprise development, but we're able to provide a revolving loan fund to a CDFI or nonprofit organization where they are able to lend larger loans out to people, and then the ultimate recipient is able to get up to a $50,000 or up to 75% total project cost on what they're looking to do as far as business development. And then again, there's a fixed interest rate based on the market in that program as well. That's established by the lender. And also in that program we can go up to a 2-year interest deferral, so that's really cool too. So an entity can request up to $205,000 to re-lend out to eligible businesses, and then for them to be eligible to receive that, they have to provide a 15% match to be able to participate in RMAP. RDBG, this is open right now. It's not due until February, but really it's to support targeted technical assistance and training and business development to rural areas where there's 50 or less employees and less than $1 million in gross revenue. So somebody like K-Card might be interested in applying for that kind of program, but they might be able to say, we're going to support agriculture producers in training them to do this, whatever this is. And that's what Rural Business Development Grant is intended to do. So there's 2 ways you can apply for RDBG. The first is enterprise, and that's really for technical assistance and training. Sometimes it can be used for the purchase of property if you're trying to build like a training facility or things like that. And then it can be used for job training or distance learning, things like that. But it's really to promote small and emerging businesses in rural areas. And then the flip side to RDBG is opportunity projects, and really those are like rural business incubators or to promote community and economic development. So a lot of times on the agricultural side, we would really look at a project under enterprise. And again, that's limited to towns, communities, state agencies, nonprofit organizations that can apply for that program, but then they can turn around and provide services to agricultural producers. There's no maximum grant amount, but there's limited amount of funding under that program. But we usually have a couple of entities that are funded under RDBG in Kentucky every year. The grant size is somewhere between $15,000 and $500,000. You just never know. And there's no cost share on that program either. So it's a really useful program that I don't think a lot of people know about. And it can be super cool. This isn't agricultural, but this is one of the RDBG recipients that received this a couple years ago. And if you don't know about Backroads of Appalachia, they call themselves Community Development Through Motorsports. So they help sponsor rallies in Appalachia with the race car rallies, and then sometimes they do off-roading and motorcycle development and things like that. But through RDBG, they established a application where they could show people the trails that are mapped all along Appalachia. So if you wanted to take a drive along Dragon Slayer, if you were on a motorcycle or you were in a rally car or you're just driving in your regular car, you can access their app. It'll take you through that trail, but it'll also highlight those businesses along the way. So it was a really cool application of this project, and it just shows you how RDBG can be used in a bunch of different applications. One of our other programs is our Business and Industry Guaranteed Loan Program. It's usually for very, very large businesses, but you would apply through a lender bank just like our direct home loan program, and then they're able to provide quite a bit of capital to you, up to $25 million maximum loan guarantee with an 80% guarantee. So that means rural development is providing that bank an 80% guarantee if that loan fails. And because of that, they're able to provide that loan to a organization, to a business at a much lower cost than any other business loan. Again, we can go up to $25 million. The risk for that guaranteed loan is reduced to that lender bank, so they're more willing to make sure that loan goes through. A couple of BNI examples: we can do hotels, auto dealerships, infrastructure, but we have funded quite a few agricultural related businesses as well. Probably one of our most recent BNI recipients is a distillery in the western part of the state that's homegrown and really doesn't have its own label, but they're accessing grain that's grown right there in western Kentucky, and they're turning it into some really fine bourbon for some other distillers under their name. This one is probably the most exciting program for me to talk about under rural business, and it's our Rural Energy for America program. And the application of this program is so widespread. You could be a very small agricultural producer and really benefit from this program, or you could be a really large rural business and benefit from this program. But what it's designed to do is to promote energy projects for farmers, ranchers, rural small businesses. And this program's changed a lot in the last couple of years. But you can, let's say your project cost $1 million. We can give you a grant up to $500,000 for that project. You can, the maximum grant request is $1 million. The minimum grant request is $2,500. So if you're a small agricultural producer and you just need to replace the lighting in some part of your facilities, then you can just do that. If we're looking at energy efficiency, if we're looking at renewable energy, so like solar, hydrogen production, geothermal type of renewable energy, we can go up to $2,500 in grant. If it's energy efficiency like lighting, we can do $1,500 in grant and up to $500,000 maximum grant. And then on the flip side of the grant program, we can do a loan as well, but it's limited to 75% of the total eligible project cost, and we can go up to $25 million in that. But a lot of times we just see people go under the grant program to put a solar application on their farm. A lot of times that's what we see. But you can also replace HVAC systems, lighting, things like that, and that's all considered part of REAP, or that's the nickname of the program. So if you're an agricultural producer, you have to directly be in the production of agricultural products, so farming or ranching, that gets 50% of your gross income. Or you can be a rural business that's located in an area under 50,000, and it has to be a small business, so it has to be a sole proprietorship, partnership, a corporation, a cooperative, to be able to apply for REAP program. So a couple project examples, and this is really cool, but we can do city streets and security lighting if that entity is private. And then we've also done cooperative solar farms as well. I'm going to skip environmental requirements because that's nobody's favorite thing. And then a couple of things that weren't on this slide, and I think they just got cut off. But we talked about Rural Energy for America, but I really wanted to highlight Value-Added Producer Grant, and really what that is intended to do is help agricultural producers enter into value-added activities for processing and marketing of value-added programs or products. And I know that K-Card also helps people get those applications together and get them to us and get funded. So if you're interested in that at all, we can give you some information for it, but really our technical assistance providers like K-Card help help the rubber meet the road on that program. And then again, we just touched on this, but there are two programs, one for an intermediary lender and our meat and poultry processing grant program that helps expand or start up meat and poultry processing facilities. So if you're a nonprofit organization and interested in that intermediary program, we can provide the funds to you, and then you re-lend it out to agricultural producers. And then there was a phase 2 of that meat and poultry processing expansion program that can award up to a $250,000 grant for construction and equipment purchases in meat and poultry processing. And both of those programs are fairly new, but we can get you information on them if you're interested. And then the last one, and I've got the fact sheets on all these, and I don't know why they didn't make it into this presentation, but the other one is the Healthy Food Financing Initiative, and that provides loans, grant, and technical assistance for food supply chain type of activities to introduce fresh and healthy food into rural communities. So we've got some information on that. A lot of that is for nonprofit, state, and local governments to apply for, but the end application is for rural farmers. So lots and lots of programs under rural development. I hope at least you've learned something, that we just cover a wide gamut of programming, and you're able to take some part of it and apply it to your life or apply it to your friends and family's lives. But I'm available to answer questions, or we can we're at the very end of the line. Just come down and see us, and we've got all the information that you would ever need. All right. I think I've ran over time, 35 minutes, and then we had to find my presentation. But if you have any questions, we're here for the rest of the day. And I thank you guys so much for joining us.